Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world-class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And for this episode's featured attraction, we take a peek behind the curtain of Halloween Horror Nights in Universal Studios Orlando, Universal Studios Hollywood, as well as Universal Studios Singapore and Japan. And joining us to discuss this iconic event is not only a theme park creator, but also someone who is a current scare actor and has been for the past 13 years. Please welcome Dylan Dickson from Theme Park Obsession on YouTube. Thank you for joining us once again.
Welcome back.
If you didn't know, he covered Velocicoaster with us on this podcast back in the day. So thank you for coming back into the Tiki Room.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
And joining us on the new YouTube channel.
Yeah, this is cool.
And as always, please like and subscribe if you're watching the video version over on youtube.com/@FYApod. Or if you're listening to the audio version, subscribe and rate the podcast 5 stars. And consider supporting us on our fourth wall, which is basically a more creator-friendly version of Patreon. You can join our fourth wall and become a second gator, as we're calling it. No, wait, what are we calling that now, Byron?
A park hopper?
A park hopper. That's right. You can join us on our fourth wall and become a park hopper, as we're calling it, because, you know, you're like hopping over to our other park.
I wanted to call you all FYA holes. Just saying, but we
could put a debate in the comments.
We backtracked.
We could do that by heading over to fyapod.com to join our fourth wall. That'll help us keep this madness going, but also you'll get up to 3 monthly bonus shows in addition to this one. But without further ado, let's jump into Halloween Horror Nights. Dylan, I had no idea that you were a scare actor the entirety of the run for this park. I had no idea.
Yeah, and well, I mean, a lot of people in general don't know that I have done this. Like, I'm doing it currently, and then in the past, they're like, "Oh my god, like you've worked Halloween Horror Nights before?" And I'm like, "Yeah, for a long time."
Yeah.
So
13 years,
cool.
right?
Yeah, I've done it. I had to take a little bit of a break when I started the channel.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was doing its thing. And then now that it kind of just, it's self-sufficient, it runs itself, then I came back in 2022 and I've been doing it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. Universal Studios Hollywood's version of Horror Nights, they took a couple breaks as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's fun. I'm there almost every single day. There's some days I have to take off, because of the channel and I got to get stuff done. But for the majority of it, I'm there.
Man, I've always wanted to be a scare actor. Like I went to school down by Knott's Berry Farm, and it always had just kind of, it had been an idea that maybe I could go down there and do, school and then go to like do Knott's for Halloween Horror, or not Halloween Horror Nights, but for the haunt. It just never worked out. But I had worked like local haunts. Like I worked my high school haunt. I used to set up mazes in my front yard for trick or treating. And like, there would be like a line and stuff like that. And we would do sliding between like our little PVC pipe maze.
That's awesome.
So I have long been obsessed with this.
He also used to scare his dorm mates. Like he would
wait
used to
scare the shit out of my
in a
dorm
closet for like 45 minutes or something just to get the satisfaction.
For the thrill of the scare, dude. For the love of the scare.
Oh, that's great.
And actually, Not Scary Farm was nice enough. I know we're not talking about Not Scary Farm this ep, but they were nice enough to let me come down and be a monster for a night.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And one of the greatest honors they ever told me was that I guess people of notoriety, douchebags that come down here and like, are monsters, you were the best one. And I'm going to say that. I don't normally toot my own horn, but that made me feel really good because I was an absolute maniac out there. They did not let me put on the knee pads though.
Yeah, sliding I've done it a couple times a long time ago, and it's definitely it's difficult.
Yeah, no, it's its own thing. Without further ado, why don't we just get straight into this episode? For this episode, since this is an event that, is ever changing every year, we won't be running it through the world-class tests, but instead we'll be leaning into previewing this year's event, as well as answering your guys' questions about the nuts and bolts of the event, especially because we have Dylan here, who works the event, and we'll be focusing on the domestic events, pretty much, just because that's where we have the experience. I haven't been over to the Japan one or the Singapore event, but
I've heard they're really. I haven't done it either, and I've heard they're really fun, and they're so different too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, also like Japanese sensibilities, we do like our horror. I could say that as my mom used to prank the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Well, I noticed because a lot of when I went to Universal Studios Japan, it was coming up on the spring season. So it wasn't even around horror nights. And yet people were still showing up like dressed up. And like
really?
they still
Wow.
had a bunch of horror characters like featured around the park. I was like, oh wow, like they really like their horror here. So
Well, I'm sorry then. We're not going to be talking about your guys' event. We're going to be talking mainly about Orlando and Hollywood. But I hope to get out to your guys' event. No one from, is anybody from, if you're from Japan and you're watching this show, put it down in the comments. We'll see.
I think Beijing now has a,
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's like some scare event, but I don't know if it's a Halloween.
I don't know if it's to the scale. Yeah. What we got here.
And of course, we'll also be telling the history and fun facts about the event as we always do on this show. Just more so about the incredible production that is Halloween Horror Nights at large. But let's get into some first impressions. What was your first impression of Halloween Horror Nights? When did you first go? And was it the first haunt you ever went to?
So I went in 2010. That was the first time I went as a guest. I went with my dad. And previous to that, I'd been introduced to the haunt industry a long time ago. My dad was assistant manager for a haunt down in San Diego, Haunted Hotel Incorporated. Shout out. And that's kind of like where my haunt career started. And he introduced me to all this. Worked there for a little bit, and then as time went on, we saw Universal start to come back because they came back in 2006.
Yeah,
and we'd always wanted to go, we just didn't have time because we were working the event down in San Diego. But then in 2010, we were like, we got to go to Halloween Horror Nights and check it out. And walking through that first attraction, which I believe was House of a Thousand Corpses at the time.
Oh, amazing!
I was like, this is absolutely incredible. Like, I've never seen production value like this before, and I've never it felt like you were in the freaking movie.
Was that a soundstage maze back
No.
over in Orlando? Oh, you just said it was Orlando or Hollywood?
Hollywood.
Oh,
so this is Hollywood.
It was the outdoor one. Because they did have it in Orlando that year.
Yeah, I didn't go to Orlando until 2018 for their event. I'd been to Orlando previously, but for their Halloween Horror Nights event, I didn't go until 2018.
Gotcha. I remember the maze quite well, and over in that parking lot area.
It was behind Terminator 2 3D.
yeah. The RIP.
Yeah, RIP and the Coke Soak area. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember the
Coke
Soak area.
Yeah, and that was the first one we walked through, and I was like, this is amazing. We walked through a few other ones. I think they had 5 or 6 mazes that year, and we were hooked, and we're like, we got to be a part of this. I need to be here. I need to be a part of all this shenanigans. And the rest is all history.
Now, were you a fan of that franchise, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like Rob Zombie, guy's a sick and twisted guy.
Oh yeah, I love it. I went to one of his concerts. So it was 2007 or 8. It was a Rob Zombie and Ozzy Osbourne concert.
Oh damn! Dude.
And we were 7th row from the stage, so we were soaked because when Ozzy Osbourne came out, he's just soaking people with the foam and all that crap.
That's a double dose of Nasty Boys.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we got some sort of disease after that. But
that guy used to bite bats' heads off, right? Or
Ozzy Osbourne.
Like that.
I think that was a rumor.
Okay.
I mean, according to Sharon Osbourne, I don't think that really happened.
That's fair.
Why would she lie?
If I was his wife, I wouldn't admit to that.
When I saw House of a Thousand Corpses for the first time, I felt like I had to take a shower.
Oh, it was great.
I just felt gross.
Yeah, it's a gnarly movie. I mean, all his movies are super gnarly.
Yeah, is that the sequel to that? Is that the Devil's
Devil's Rejects?
That is the technical. It is a sequel, right? Because it has characters from because it's Baby and it has
I see. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I feel like it might be a prequel. But no, I think it's a sequel.
That's that one that has one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen in a scary movie.
Is it the hotel scene?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's pretty gnarly.
It's rough. This isn't a podcast about that, so we won't talk about it. But if you want to be to vomit into your lap, go ahead and fire up on YouTube the hotel scene from the Devil's Rejects. It's not fun.
With the terrifying nature of today's featured attraction, you're probably going to need all the help you can get when it comes to getting a good night's sleep. And why not start with your bed sheets? Traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses. And, it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning antibacterial bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get a better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are also luxuriously comfortable, without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code FYA at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/FYA and use the code FYA to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/FYA to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Now back to the show.
Anyways, Byron, what was your first impression of Halloween Horror Nights? You're more of a scaredy cat.
Yeah, I mean, I've warmed up to it over the years.
Is that partly because of me or fully because of me?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to give you the credit without you throwing it up there yourself, but you just couldn't resist. I will say that, yeah, I had no interest in watching horror films or doing any of the Halloween events up until around college. And even like halfway through college, it took like Ryan again and again insisting that I go to this to Not Scary Farm, and I eventually went and got over some of the fears of that, and then started watching some horror films. And like I think like I've reluctantly enjoyed all this like throughout the years. I've slowly warmed up and appreciate horror for what it is.
But you went to Not Scary Farm first.
That was Not Scary Farm for a while, and you guys were still going to horror nights. I had no interest in going to horror nights.
Was that because it was more scary?
I was less afraid of, I think slightly yes, but then I also just kept hearing stories about how like long the wait times were and how crowded it was. And once again, like we're in Orange County at the time, like going to Hollywood just felt like a much bigger ask for me than going over to Buena Park.
Yeah, the traffic coming here is crazy.
I would say I was more afraid of the crowds than the scare factor, I guess, if that makes sense. So I actually didn't go to horror nights until probably like a few years ago, or maybe like right before the pandemic.
Huh.
And that was with you. I've only been twice to the Hollywood Horror Nights.
That's crazy.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea.
Once again, like, I don't remember a lot of it. Like, I remember having a decent time. I remember, like, not as many mazes as Knott's. But, of course, like, the production value is much better. Of course, because it's Universal. They got like much more IP based. But ironically enough, I remember it not being as scary as Knott's, and I think it's because I have more of a fear to the cheaper type of horror, like the more low budget horror fare, where like when it's like super well done and like more mainstream, and like Universal, especially the Hollywood, like thrives off like very popular IP characters. I kind of go into it like, oh, like this is like I'm living like this really nice production. I get like that's like, you know, inspired by these hit films, whereas you go into this like funhouse looking like original concept that has like these walls that look like they're just like they were assembled yesterday, and like you could get splinters if you touch them. Like that scares me way more. So I thought, in an ironic way, Universal is more sanitized, but I did find it more impressive. Now Universal Orlando I did for the first time last year with you. That was a different story. Awesome. I walked out of that one. I'm like, that is the best Halloween event I've ever done.
I mean, to give credit to Knott's Berry Farm, their production value has definitely gotten better over the years, and they're really good. I mean, they're the OGs. They're the ones that created all this. Like, if it wasn't for Knott's Berry Farm, we wouldn't have these Halloween events and theme parks. And the first time I went to Knott's Scary Farm was in 2005. That was the first time I was ever introduced to a theme park event. But then Horror Nights was in 2010. But yeah, like Knott's does have a different feel to it, and it makes it uniquely Knott's. But then, Universal, you go in expecting to relive that horror movie, and I think that's what made them, famous. Now is
that like made them possible because they tried doing what they were doing in Orlando and didn't. We'll throw in the history, but yeah, it wasn't like an initial success. Like Knott's was like,
yeah, they were the juggernaut.
Yeah, they were it for Southern California.
Yeah.
And I know this is maybe a rehash for if you've listened to the Knott's Scary Farm episode, but Knott's Scary Farm was the first haunt I went to in 2000. I was like 10 years old, and I just fell in love with it, and I've been obsessed with it ever since. And then Halloween Horror Nights. When did Halloween Horror Nights come to Hollywood, Byron?
It
was in the 90s.
It came to Hollywood a couple times.
It was 97, right?
It came the year after they started it over in Florida, so I believe it was 92. It didn't work out, so they shut it down until I believe 97, late 90s.
Yeah.
It'll be in the history. But then they once again stopped it again until 2006.
Yes.
2006 was a big game changer because that was when they decided, okay, like let's just bring in like iconic horror figures.
And they brought in the director, right?
To lead it.
Yeah, the director was 2006, but they didn't really have like a bunch of IP that year. They only had like 1 or 2 mazes, and it was almost like a test to see what the public would do, and it was a huge hit. And then the following year, that's when they started bringing in the IP.
So 2006 was my first Halloween Horror Nights.
Oh, wow.
Is why I remember it was the director. It's because I went to Knott's Scary Farm in 2000, and I went every year since then. And then I'd heard rumblings that they were going to bring Halloween Horror Nights back because I had not had the chance to experience the 1997 event. And I was so excited. I think I actually have a picture of me over, I think in like French Street. I can't remember. What's the name of that street? Does anyone?
French Street is the one closest to like where the Minions area is.
Isn't there like an official name for French Street? I just always call it French Street.
It's French Street. Yeah, it's French Street.
Hey, you know what? If it's not, you could tell me in the comments. I'm sure you will. But I have a picture of me. They had this like guy with like a little barber setup where it was like a kind of like a Sweeney Todd setup. And maybe I think it was in French Street. And there's a picture of him slicing my throat. It's really fun. It was my profile picture on MySpace for a long time.
Shout out to MySpace.
And then also Facebook. I double dipped right back when I was like, which one these platforms am I going to continue doing? But I did that since 2006. And it's really been, honestly, a struggle for me to determine which event I like more. Whenever anybody asks me which of the two big dogs in SoCal do I like the most in terms of haunts, Halloween Horror Nights or Knott's Scary Farm, it's honestly year by year. I don't think I could wholesale say I like one more than the other. I know Knott's has the nostalgia attached to it, and also just the fact that Dylan alluded to is that it's the granddaddy haunt. It's the one that started all of this.
And let's not forget the roller coasters.
And now with Hollywood Drift coming down the turnpike here, we're going to be able to get on a world-class coaster at Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood, which is something that even Orlando can't say, just because they really only have Rip Ride Rocket, and who knows how much longer that is for this earth.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to knock that thing down.
Unless you have a part. Oh, no, you can't go over to Islands of Adventure when the event's going. But I went to Halloween Horror Nights Orlando for the first time last year when we were on tour and for Ghost Files, and my God. That was incredible.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible event.
There was a period of time where they had Islands of Adventure also doing Horror Nights. And I was like wondering, like, man, if that was going on now, if you could combo Velocicoaster with
did a year where they did both parks.
Exactly.
And you walk through like this makeshift scare zone between where the Hard Rock Cafe is.
We'll talk about that later.
They should do like a haunted like train, like the Hogwarts Express.
That'd be good.
Go by it to connect the two. That'd be gnarly.
That would be good.
Let's go ahead and move on though let's go ahead and move on to history. But before we do that, let's take some time to thank our sponsors that are hopefully here. All right, thank you. Let's move on to some history.
February 14th, 1931, Universal Pictures released Dracula, starring instant horror icon Bela Lugosi. The film made roughly $500,000 at the box office, which for its time was considered a huge success, especially when considering ticket prices were about 20 cents at the time, and theater attendance as a whole dwindled in the midst of the Great Depression. The success of Dracula would motivate Universal to go forward with releasing Frankenstein in November of that same year.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
The film would star the 6'3" Boris Karloff and go on to surpass the financial haul garnered by Dracula. And with that, Universal quickly became the studio synonymous with producing high-quality horror films, anchored by their iconic monsters. From Mummy to Invisible Man to Wolfman, Universal kept pumping out banger after banger. Locations and tributes to these films would eventually be presented as signature experiences within what's now known as Universal's world-famous studio tram tour.
it is important to note that the tram experience that we know and love today, and Universal Parks as a whole for that matter, wouldn't have been made possible without Jay Stein, who served as the tour's game-changing creative lead throughout the late 60s and 70s. For more history on the world-famous studio tour, you could check out that episode we did on that.
And you can check out more great Jay Stein quotes. The guy is fucking hilarious. Very matter of fact, just a funny dude.
What we didn't mention in that episode was that the tram tour introduced a Halloween horror night in 1986, but the event was a far cry from the event you are probably familiar with today and proved to be a tragic endeavor when a Universal employee tasked with jumping out and scaring guests fell between two of the trams and was killed.
Oh, shit.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Jesus Christ. I didn't know that.
Oh my God.
Yikes.
Universal would refrain from hosting any more Halloween-centric events until 1991, when the newly opened Universal Studios Florida was in desperate search of attendance following its failed opening in the year 1990. Remember Jay Stein? Well, he went on to become chairman and CEO of Universal's parent company at the time, MCA, and had himself a hankering for bringing a Halloween-themed event to the Universal parks. To pull this off, he would put Julie Zimmerman in charge of designing and overseeing said event. And well, she knocked it out of the park. Universal would find great success over in Florida with what they called Fright Nights in their inaugural year of providing after-hour haunts. Unlike the annual event you are probably familiar with today, Fright Nights at Universal Studios Florida ran for only 3 nights during that first year. It didn't feature any scare zones and only featured one maze entitled The Dungeon of Terror, but overall proved to be a satisfying experience for guests in addition to boosting ticket sales. And that was all Universal needed to feel confident in taking the event further into the years ahead. Julie Zimmerman would remain in charge of the event through most of the 90s and received the title of creative designer. Heading into their sophomore year, Universal would change the name of the event to what many of us are familiar with today, Halloween Horror Nights.
Just really quickly, which title is better?
I don't know. Fright Nights at this point kind of reminds me more of Six Flags.
Yeah, Fright
Yeah.
Fest, but
Oh,
I honestly think Fright Nights is a better
It's a pretty dope name.
Yeah, because Halloween Horror Nights, I mean, I guess now because it's like, it's in the zeitgeist, it sounds better, but if we're going to take their names at face value,
Fright Nights was pretty good.
Fright Nights is
It's
pretty
less of a
fucking-
mouthful for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Mhm.
Universal Studios Hollywood would also try their luck with this event in the following year as well, but failed to get the attendance boost achieved in Florida. This most likely had something to do with the insanely popular Halloween theme park event less than an hour down the freeway. The event I am referring to here is Knott's Halloween Haunt, which had already established itself as the ultimate SoCal scare event back in 1973. Horror Nights would ultimately stage a massive comeback many years later, but at this particular time in history, would concede to Knott's completely by taking a hiatus that would last until 1997, only to take another hiatus from 2001 to 2005. Meanwhile, in Florida, no hiatus necessary as the event grew in both popularity and attractions year after year. By the mid-90s, scare zones were introduced to the event, which continued to run longer and longer. For example, 8 nights in 1994, 12 nights in 1995, and 19 nights by 2000, which also by this time featured 5 scare mazes.
How many nights are in this year's event?
Like 412. Like,
I'm sure it feels like it.
I think it's like close to 40.
Because I remember in the one night I worked Not Scary Farm. You may have heard of that in this podcast. At the end of the night, I was like, my body hurts.
Oh yeah.
And I was so sweaty and just gross. And I gained an even higher respect than I already had for all the scare actors out there that are able to do it night in and night out for the entirety of the run. Because I can't imagine the physical toll that takes on your body.
It's a lot. Like I literally look like a pencil by the end of the season because you lose so much weight. It's
Yeah.
like cardio every
Yeah.
single day. And
Oh, I would abuse that. If I knew that I was going to lose all that weight, I would be eating like a total prick all summer.
yeah, move over, Jenny Craig. This is the best workout thing ever.
I was gonna
Like,
say, yeah, like is there any change to your routine when spooky season comes upon you, or
I mean, if anything, like as far as that goes, it's like just focus on lifting weights and stuff because you don't want to lose your muscle because it is a lot of cardio.
Yeah.
And then just trying to eat enough to fulfill yourself because you're burning so many calories. But it's at the end of the day, it's so much fun and fulfilling. Like it's so rewarding, you know?
It's a true physical endeavor. And people, I don't think they realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I did have a sidebar here for the year 2000. Have any of you guys heard of Jack Schmidt?
Yeah,
Or,
Jack the Clown.
Jack the Clown.
Yeah,
So
the
that
most
was-
famous icon in the event.
Yeah, and they keep bringing this guy back. I just learned about this because once again, I don't follow horror like these guys do. But apparently that's what the original character that Universal created and introduced in 2000. And they've kept bringing him back. And then every year, specifically in Florida, they seem to have all these new types of, new icons and stuff that they bring in, which I found like really neat because I don't know if we have that in the Hollywood version.
Hollywood did it for like 1 or 2 years, and then
Yeah.
they decided just to let their sister park, and do the icon thing. And yeah, they've been doing icons out in Orlando for years.
Jack has made a couple reappearances as well. Like
Yeah.
they do a good job of like bringing back some of the icons that people resonated with. And Jack has always been one of those guys.
That's dope. Yeah, I think I remember like they'd create mazes that were all like following like a similar like a story, like all the stories were connected in a way.
Yeah, some of the houses out there in Orlando have like deep storyline, and
Yes.
they have like sequels and stuff. Dead Exposure is one of them that they've done in Orlando, and now they're doing it here in Hollywood. So it's kind of cool that they do that out there.
I wonder how much that maze is going to be similar or if it's going to be completely different, just like the same theme.
The creative director of the event has publicly said that it's going to be a little different, like
that's
than
cool.
what we expected in Orlando.
Murdy said that?
Yeah, I think I was talking about it in a press release that it's just a little bit different than what we're used to in Orlando. Because Orlando, the last Dead Exposure haunted house that I went through, that was in 2018. That was the scariest fucking haunted house that I think I've ever walked through in my life.
Oh God, I'm so excited. And also, when you guys are listening to this episode, some of you might have already gone to the event. But for those of you who haven't, we're treating this almost like a spoiler-free episode. We're going to be previewing this year's event. So we are not going to be going through the fine details of what these mazes are. And we also, at this point, haven't experienced these mazes. It's August right now. So I'm very excited for Dead Exposure. I cannot wait.
Same.
Back to I guess the early 2000s, the continued success of Horror Nights over in Florida would inspire Universal to take another stab at bringing it to Hollywood. Only this time they would take a much different approach. As opposed to developing original characters to the lead event, Universal would simply feature horror icons that were already available and proven to be successful via their box office returns. They would even go as far as to make a deal with New Line Cinema to bring in horror heavyweights such as Freddy Krueger, Jason, and Leatherface to lead a march to success for Universal Studios Hollywood. And with that, the fourth time was the charm for Universal Studios Hollywood, which has built a model based on bringing existing new hit horror IPs into their events year after year. And although the attendance numbers and reception may never reach the heights achieved over in Orlando, it found a way to coexist and perhaps surpass Knott's, and is now considered by many to be the superior Halloween theme park event in California.
Well, get careful now.
Although I was going to end up by saying, although I might disagree. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's right.
I like both of them in their own respect. They each bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get more of an intense experience, you go to Halloween Horror Nights. It has more of like a party atmosphere. If you want like the Halloween vibe, it feels kind of like a Halloween festival. More like, I don't know, the fall vibe in general. I say go to Knott's Berry Farm. They each bring something different.
It's like Shake Shack and In-N-Out. Like I love,
that's a
I love
pretty
both
clear
of them.
answer for me. That's In-N-Out.
Yeah. But I
Million
can. Here's
times
the thing:
over.
is I would take In-N-Out over Shake Shack. But here's the deal: I can see why people would prefer Shake Shack.
Okay.
It's just based on preference. Like
That's fair.
Shake Shack's
I
gonna
like
cost.
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack's gonna cost you more, but you got
Here we go.
different menu items, maybe a little cleaner, nicer area to eat. Actually, although In-N-Out's pretty well taken.
In-N-Out's
care of.
very well taken care of.
But the quality I think for both is terrific. I am now talking about
I was about to
horror
say-
events now.
Yeah,
but
I was about to say that you get this guy talking about smash burgers. We're going to be here all goddamn day. I have to say that this feels kind of like if you ask a parent which of their kids is their favorite. And
Yeah.
what I'm saying is being a fan of horror events is exactly like being a parent. I'm not a parent. But it would be impossible for me to determine which one is the better event. Like I said, there are some years I'm a Knott's guy, and there's some years that I'm a Horror Nights guy, and you never know.
I always just tell people to go to both of them, just because
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
the big dogs in the industry. I mean, even Six Flags Fright Fest is doing cool things this year with all their IP that they got. But like, I just say do all the big theme park things. There's haunt events that I don't like, and I'm not going to say who they are. But like, I I say as far as the big theme park heavy hitters, yeah, just go and enjoy. And you have all season. They're open. They open up at the beginning of September, and you have all the way up until October. So why not?
I know. I mean, and there's also other big events that are going on, especially in Southern California, where it feels like we're in like haunt capital. Like if I had to put my list, it's probably in ranking number 1, Shacktober. Number 2. I actually didn't get the chance to go to Shacktober, but I really wanted to.
Okay.
What is this? What is Shacktober?
Shacktober is over at the Queen Mary.
It's garbage.
Oh, I thought you were mentioning it.
That was the one thing I will say that it's because screw them. I hated that. I went on like Instagram after we went through it. I'm like, this is the biggest piece of shit I've ever been through in my life. It was awful.
How long have they been running this?
First year.
It was like one and done, and now they're not. Well, they're not doing Shacktoberfest anymore.
Oh damn, dude! I want to go to Shacktoberfest.
It was so good that they just had to stop it
because I love Shaquille O'Neal. I really do.
Yeah, well, it's Dark Harbor now this year, which I don't really.
Oh,
care
it's back to Dark Harbor. Oh, great.
Yeah, but I just. Shacktoberfest.
Oh, I didn't realize they're bringing Dark Harbor back. I'm going to definitely do that too.
Yeah, Dark Harbor.
Did we do Dark Harbor? Was that what it was when we went? I've been to it once.
We went to Dark Harbor. I try to do as many of these haunt events as I can. Unfortunately, because I host horror content like Ghost Files, I'm the busiest during Halloween season, so it's hard for me to do them.
You know what we should all go to is like I've always wanted to go to the ones like back east. Like I want to go to Netherworld. Netherworld would be amazing. Like there's some big haunts like elsewhere around the country that are independent that are insane. Like even the Darkness up in St. Louis is really good too.
No, I went to in Royal Oak, Michigan. I was on tour there, and we were around that area, so I can't remember the exact place, but it was in Michigan. There was a regional haunt there. It was just one house, and this happens a lot where you if you're not near Halloween Horror Nights on either coast, go to your regional haunts because they're great. Most of the time it's just one house, and there was this one house. It was a warehouse that they had rented out. It was like multiple stories, and they did. And we'll get on. We'll move on in a second, but I do think you'll appreciate this if you're a haunt fan. They did maybe the single greatest thing I've ever seen in a maze. And it's something that you can only do in like a regional haunt, other than things like they were like touching you and stuff like that. And honestly, I like that because I'm like, fuck it. Like there is no like standards and practices here that they have to adhere by. So they were doing some crazy shit in there. But at one point there, we were maybe towards like, I want to say the second third of the maze. We were like approaching, we were at the midway point essentially. And there was this girl, and she had gotten separated from her group. And she was like, hey, and she was freaking the fuck out. Because I think like she ran, and sometimes people run away in a maze.
Oh, yeah.
And then they just get lost.
Yeah.
And there's no blackouts there. Blackouts, by the way, are people that are in like all black clothing in these mazes. They're telling you like, go this way if you get lost. They don't have that at these regional haunts. Anyways,
this girl find your way out.
This girl, yeah, she just was like left to her own devices, and I'm sure her party was waiting at the exit. Anyways, she came up to Shane and I, and she was like, hey, can I just walk with you guys? And we were like, yeah, sure. And she's freaking out like the rest of the maze, and it's kind of weird because it's kind of like one of those things where like, she's
it's awkward.
She's kind of like grabbing onto us, and we're like, all right, cool. And as we get towards, there's like this part that has like this it's like a weird chain link fenced area where there's chainsaws everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this door opens. Like in Chainsaw Massacre, where like a metal door opens with this big guy. He grabs her and drags her into the door, and she's fucking screaming, and then shuts the door. We didn't see her again. And I realized she was an actor.
Oh, that's fucking great.
And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Because when he dragged her, we were like, hey, dude, what the... And then just shut the door on us. And then when the door shut, I felt like the biggest idiot on earth. First off, if you're watching this and you're out there, incredible performance. Like I don't know if you're an actor, you should be, because I was like, I think I just watched a woman get murdered.
Yeah. That's pretty intense.
It blew my mind. And I was like, and the odds, like obviously that's not a scare that's going to be for everybody that's going through the attraction.
Yeah.
That's going to be for a select few that get the girl treatment.
Yeah.
Maybe they just saw like two dudes walking by themselves. I'm like, it'd be funny if like, and actually we were with our producer Lizzie Lockhart as well, but I've never seen anything quite like it. So, but that's the kind of stuff that you might find at like a regional haunt. Not to say that, that lessens anything that's, Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm or any of these big titans, but I'm just saying I'm encouraging you to go check out your local haunt.
Yeah.
Because I try to do as many of those as I can, even in Southern California. Especially these backyard haunts, which are awesome. Anyways, moving on to some fun facts. The first original icon of Halloween Horror Nights Orlando was Jack Schmidt, as Byron said, aka Jack the Clown in 2000. Other favorites of mine include the Caretaker, the Director, which was my first icon. He was in Hollywood, and then I never got to see him in Orlando. All these icons do have pretty elaborate backstories, none more infamous perhaps than Eddie, the intended icon for Halloween Horror Nights in 2001. He was a chainsaw-wielding dude, very real human, but then they canceled him because, as you may know, 9/11 happened that year, and they were like, maybe we don't bring like a very real human guy who could inflict harm into the public consciousness right now. And so they toned down the event that whole year, and Eddie just kind of disappeared. Though he has appeared not as like a true icon in later events, he's made appearances. Sweet 16 was also a time when all the famous icons came back at the same time. This included, like as I mentioned before, Jack and the Caretaker, the Director. It was really fun. 2004 was the only time the event was featured in both Islands of Adventure and Universal Orlando. And there was actually, as Dylan mentioned earlier, there was a scare zone between the two parks that you could walk through. It was a 2-acre scare zone.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
It was called Field of Screams. Nice. And it featured actual corn that they planted in advance for it to grow by the time it got to October. And this was over in the Dr. Seuss backlot area. They've never put a scare zone over there since.
Well, I believe the corn thing, like they don't want to do the corn thing anymore because I believe that was also the year they had a really bad hurricane.
They did.
And so Halloween Horror Nights, like, you know, legend and lore and all that, they're like, we can't have real corn at the event or else we're going to have really bad hurricane. And they haven't had a really takeaway. Yeah, and they haven't had a bad hurricane since because they haven't had real corn at the event. They haven't done that. It's been
That's
like
crazy.
little fake things here and there, but every time they'll think about putting it up, they're like, no, we got to take it back down because if not, we're gonna have a big storm.
Pure superstition.
Oh yeah,
there's probably just somebody at head of props who's traumatized, and they're like, "What if we use real corn?" And their hand starts shaking.
And then the one executive's like, "Yeah, that'll save us money. We don't need to put that there. Like, that's cool." Like, yeah, but it's funny that they don't. Yeah, so you won't see it at the event that often.
I wish they would do the two parks again. That'd
absolutely.
be awesome. And I mean, honestly, a large part of it is because then you get Velocicoaster in the mix.
Oh my god,
a Velocicoaster plus Halloween Horror Nights. I don't think I'd survive that just from the pure joy I would experience.
Oh, I would be shitting my pants on the ride and in the mazes. I mean, it would just be like, yeah, that would be. Islands of Fear was iconic.
Well, there was, speaking of shitting your pants, if you recall, there was, I think, I believe, a maze in the Jurassic Park, the Triceratops maze.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And they had a distinct poo scent in that maze, and it would permeate through that and come up to guests who were eating in that little Discovery Center.
Oh, shit.
And they had to they actually covered this in the Behind the Screams tour, and that guests would be in that gift shop area and be like, what the fuck is that smell? And it was the poo.
I love it. Like, I'm a big fan of potty humor. Like, the smells of Horror Nights are so gnarly. Like, some of them are just ridiculous. And you know when they're designing these things, they're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be the shit room.
Yeah,
like,
dude,
let's do the poop room
themselves. They love a poo room.
Yeah.
And they also love a burnt hair room, like a burnt barbecue room. These guys are going crazy with their scents.
Yeah.
Which is, by the way, another fun fact. Universal is famous for their scents that they curate themselves and they put in these mazes. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if they do it themselves. Either they do it themselves or they must outsource. That's unknown. But whoever they do it with, or if they're doing it themselves, I guess I could think of one way how they would do it themselves very easily. But I don't think that would be sanitary after maybe the first night or second night. But kudos to you guys. Keep doing your poo thing. Prep usually starts immediately for the next year's event. Halloween Horror Nights never sleeps. Creative director John Murdy said in an interview that prep for the 2023 event started in March 2022, which is basically, 3 months of off time? And I'm sure even then they were still thinking about what they were going to do. Like, I know for Knott's, they also have an idea of what they're going to do for the next year while they're doing the event. They're seeing what is working and what is not working. Especially at Knott's, they bring mazes back. Halloween Horror Nights, not so much, or not as much as Knott's does. But yeah, this is a year-round planning event, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, you almost have to, because I mean, I'll do the Horror Nights updates on my channel, and they'll start building these things like in March or April. So it's like you almost have to start planning it right now for the next year.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if we're gonna do 10 mazes or whatever, what the hell are those gonna be? You know, we obviously can't bring back everything like Knott's does, and Horror Nights has been known to do new things every single year. So yeah, I mean, you have to, logistically wise, you have no choice.
If you didn't know, Dylan over at the Park Obsession on YouTube does great coverage of all the whole Halloween Horror Nights construction that I do watch when he first starts rolling it out, because it is fun to see these mazes start to get constructed, especially because you get great views from the studio tour.
Oh yeah, the studio tour is really great especially when it comes to the Terror Tram setup, and then behind Revenge of the Mummy, they always put a haunted house back there.
Yeah,
so
you always
cool.
get a great view of that from the Starway. Anyways, moving on. This just says media packages. Oh, it's because I don't know if any of you guys are huge nerds like I am. Maybe you. Back in the day, and I don't know if they still do this, or maybe the person that I used to watch unbox these things just stopped doing it. But Universal used to send out these media packages to preview the coming event, and they would send them to this guy from Screamscape.
Oh, yeah, Screamscape. Shout out to Screamscape.
Shout out to Screamscape. And he would unbox them every year on YouTube, and they would be awesome. Like sometimes he would, the most recent one that I think the last one he ever uploaded was when they did Lady Luck over at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, and they sent this like dismembered hand in this box, and it was covered in blood. And it's just always gross, and like the details on it were always so cool.
I still think they do that, like at least in Orlando. I know Hollywood, some people have gotten like a little merchandise box, but I still think in Orlando they do the crazy like media packages.
Hey, if you want to send me one, please do. I want to unbox a hand or like a head or any other crazy shit that you want to send my way. It's awesome. Just shout out to Screamscape. Go check out those videos. They're not relevant anymore, but I like watching them. And then I wrote boo holes. There's terminology for certain parts of a maze or certain scares. A boo hole is like where an actor or a scare actor will pop out. SIF is stuff in face, or at first I thought it was shit in face, but it's stuff in face. And this is referring to all like the various like cobwebs or like hanging things that are from like the ceiling, and you're wipe them out of your face. Just like fun little terminology. Are there any other terms that you find particularly endearing as a scare actor?
I mean, there's things that I obviously don't want to talk about, but there's I do love the stuff in face. That is SIF is always really fun, because you walk through a haunted house and you're just like, what the fuck is all this? Like bodies, pigs, intestines, whatever, those elements are so much fun because it really starts to catch you off guard, and it's a huge distraction, which is great for people like me that are in these environments working them, because the guest is distracted, then that's an easy way to just scare the hell out of them.
That makes sense. The one that annoys me the most as a guest is the string that simulates a spider web. I cannot stand it, dude.
Those are everywhere in them. And
I know what it is, and I'm not even scared by it. I'm just like, come on.
It's the simplest little thing too. Like it's the easiest gags are sometimes the most effective ones.
I wish I could meet the guy who made that up, just to know how simple it was. Like, I'm going to hang a string and it's going to make someone think there's a spider on their face. Just because how funny that would be to watch in night vision. Because there's guests to this day who haven't been to this event. I've taken people to this event for the first time, and I hear them behind me like, oh! It's so satisfying.
Yep.
Midnight Syndicate is a band that has been writing soundtracks for the event for a long time, and in 2020 released a limited edition vinyl with Universal, and it was titled Music of Halloween Horror Nights. I can't imagine that would be a good listen, though. Is that a good listen?
It's probably very terrifying. It's just like kind of makes you depressed or whatever. Like,
I mean,
wow.
Like, let's throw in some horror ambiance right now on this long road trip.
They make some great music. I mean, so many haunts around the world use their music.
I mean, the vinyl is probably cool as shit.
Oh yeah.
Jaws actually not working, some say, in a lot of ways led to the creation of Halloween Horror Nights. 1 year, when the first year of Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, Jaws was not working. The shark was not working as it did in the filming. And to kind of remedy that, instead of like actually getting the ride to work, they're like, wow, why don't we just throw things in the Jaws queue and then we'll do that. And that was a huge success. And that kind of was the impetus for the creation of Halloween Horror Nights at large. At least some say.
So that's probably where the Dungeon of Terror maze
I think
was.
You have to double check me on that, but they just threw something in the queue of that ride because they couldn't fix the shark.
They're like, here you go, this will work.
Behind the Screams, Unmasking the Horror Tour is something that is only offered in Orlando as of now, and it gives you a lights-on tour of up to 6 houses. They have a 3-house package and a 6-house package. I've never done it before, but that sounds incredible. Just because I often get scared in these mazes. One, because I'm a jumpy person, but people are always shocked to find that I love horror films. I love mazes. They don't really scare me at like a visceral level, or I don't freak out. I get jumpy when something pops out at me. And most of the time that I get scared in a maze is because I'm so caught up in looking at the details and taking in the story that I just completely forget that I'm in a maze, and then something will pop out and it gets me.
That's usually when I get, jumpy as well. I mean, I know every trick in the book. So it's like, it's difficult. So I'm paying attention like, oh, wow, like what did they use on the wall here? And this is really cool. And then boom, something will happen. And that's what usually will get me pretty good.
And I know that's the form. I know Knott's is actually starting to do this now, but this was Halloween Horror Nights is bread and butter. I watched a documentary back in the day called Art of the Scare. That was a documentary on Halloween Horror Nights. And they have a whole section where they talk to you about misdirection, where basically they will make some really cool thematic element on this side of the room to get you to look over there and be like, oh, cool, look, Michael does eat dinner. And then you turn around and then Michael Myers pops out from over there and scares the living shit out of you. And it's very effective. I know it's coming, but at the same time, I'm not willing to miss out on that cool detail, even though I know I'm going to get wrecked from behind.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to go on these lights on tours so that I could actually see these details in the light of day and hear the maze designer talk through them at length. And I don't think it's the maze designer. They usually have some sort of tour guide there that's also knowledgeable. But you get cool little insights like that Pooh story.
Yeah, I wish they would do it here in Hollywood.
I would definitely go.
Yeah.
Do that in Hollywood, please, if anybody from Universal is watching this. From Halloween Horror Nights 17 in 2007, Universal Studios acquired the rights to use New Line Cinema characters Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Leatherface for Halloween Horror Nights. I think you mentioned that, though, right?
Yeah.
That was a huge win. Robosaurus in Halloween Horror Nights Orlando 1992 was like a giant. It was like a giant animatronic. Pretty much went full Phantasmic and exploded. There was a car that exploded near it, and it almost burned the park down. Fans thought it was part of the show. Were cheering until the firefighters showed up.
Oh my God.
Wish I could have been there for that. And then in 1998, there was this is not really a fun fact, it's just something I wish I could have seen. There was a Carnage Crew maze that was based on the hit film Titanic, unofficially.
Oh my God.
And if anybody has experiences with that, please leave them in the comments, because that is one of those mazes that is like a great white whale for me. And let's move on actually to a new segment for this show that Byron doesn't even know about. It's called Armchair Engineering.
Nice.
This is one thing that I would possibly do to make this attraction better, or in this case, this event. And eventually, in the future, I'll read one idea from you guys that I gathered from our fourth wall over at fyapod.com. But because we're filming this in advance, we don't have that yet, so it's just going to be me. Or one of you guys as well. Here's what I think they should do. And I think this is, I don't know how scary or how possible this is. One of my favorite things at Not Scary Farm at Halloween Haunt was always when they would make the log ride be filled with scare actors. And it was so effective, incredibly effective.
Yeah.
They would have these folks hiding in the pitch black with flashlights. They'd pop out at you. There's nothing you could do. You're just trapped in that log. I think they could do this with Jurassic World. I think they could do it with, if they ever bring it back to Islands of Adventure, they could do it there. But for sure, Jurassic World, the ride, in Universal Studios Hollywood, if they just added some scare actors there, maybe some in like the Raptor Encounter, suit. Yeah. If they had that guy hiding somewhere in that boat, popping out at you like in a real significant way, you could probably give someone a heart attack.
Yeah, and hopefully the guy wouldn't trip and fall into the water. Like, oh no!
That's actually why they stopped doing it at Knott's, because the talent kept getting wet.
Yeah.
But also, you could add some scary show scenes to this ride. Like, maybe have a scare, like an actor there, like a dude like who's working at Jurassic World, get mauled by a raptor, and you see like the blood and everything. Like, go for
cool.
it. Like, completely go for it on some of these attractions. Because, like, honestly, there's no reason for me to go on those rides. and Halloween Horror Nights.
I tell people not to go on the rides anyway when they're going
Me
to
too.
like these haunt events. It's like it only happens once a year. Why would you waste your time going on all
and if you're doing
all
it, save it to the
rides?
end of the night after you've done all the mazes.
Yeah, if you've done all the haunted houses and everything, you've done everything that needs to be done that's specialty, then yeah, cool. We can go on some rides or whatever.
It's too much valuable time. Especially
Yeah.
if they were walk-ons, I think that'd be a different story. But those waits are still like an hour plus.
Yeah,
so.
and you're spending a premium price to be there to
Yeah.
experience the specialty products. So it's like, I mean, even like with all these theme park events, I hear from time and time again, like people are like, oh, we only went through one maze, but we went on some rides. I'm like, to go during the day. It's cheaper to go during the day, and you can do all the rides with not even waiting in line for
Yeah.
anything. Like, what? I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense, but if they did this for Jurassic World, it would give me a reason to go on.
Yeah,
And it
I
would
mean,
add capacity to the park,
yeah,
which they desperately need. And even, I mean, I know they have a lot of mazes this year, 9 counting Terror Tram, but I feel like making Jurassic World be significantly different. I know for a little bit they did Jurassic Park in the dark,
yeah,
and I was like, cute. But I
Yeah.
think like, let's take that one step.
yeah.
further.
That would be cool. Like, could you imagine you go down that little drop and you see the Indominus Rex like from the top, and he has like a body in his mouth or something.
Yeah, or even just like have like just add like an actor in there that like is
Yeah.
pretending to get mauled by one of these dinosaurs. Like
That'd be
even
cool.
the raptor paddock. Like there's like you could have like somebody like trying to get out of the fence and like fall down and you just see blood squirt. Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
just like
That'd be cool.
maybe this maybe is impractical, but I think it's a free idea. I think it's a free idea, Universal, and you could take it. Just get that raptor guy out there, pay him the extra, whatever you're paying him an hour, and be like, you're gonna just, you know, possibly murder some teenagers tonight, and it's gonna be awesome.
You know, what I'd like to see is all Dementors on Forbidden Journey. Just
Just
that
from
thing
start
pitch
to
black,
finish.
and it's just
That'd be
dial it
kinda
up
fun.
to 11 Dementors.
Yeah, that would be good. Like what? Because I know when we covered Forbidden Journey on this podcast,
Because they had those old effects that they took out,
but they're still there.
like the
they could turn them back
the
on.
soul sucking face like effect.
There's
and-
also the Dementor that comes from the ceiling. They could turn that back on.
Oh, yeah.
They lessened some of those effects after feedback of children being somehow scared by
That's a scary
a
part of the
soul-sucking
ride.
thing coming towards you at full speed.
I still get like weirded out when you go through that scene of the ride. You're like, ooh, this is pretty creepy in
I
here.
can't believe kids go on that ride.
Oh yeah. Well, the kids are not definitely going on the new ride at Epic Universe, the Monsters one.
We'll see.
Oh.
I mean, if they do, then they're going to be coming off crying.
We just covered extraterrestrial alien encounter.
Oh yeah.
And there was plenty of signage that said this is going to be maybe too frightening for children, and parents were like, "Not for my kid."
They can do it.
And then this is the last ride they ever got on. Is there anything that you guys would do to improve the event?
I would. Here's one
If
thing.
it's
I
like
would do.
in like blue sky, like make it even better than it is.
I think I would. Well, one, I would decorate the park a little bit more. I think
Interesting.
the park needs some more decorations. The decorations that they do have in the park are really cool, but it's like that's one thing I like about Knott's Berry Farm. You walk into Ghost Town, there's like cobwebs everywhere. There's pumpkins, and it just feels like
yeah, that's fair.
Whereas Halloween Horror Nights, logistically, it's hard for them to decorate a lot in the park. I get it, but I wish there was more decorations in the park. And then two, I would switch the route of Terror Tram. I would take you
Yes.
to a completely different area of the lot. And then my buddies and I were actually talking about this the other day. When you get back on the tram, instead of just going right back to the load and unload area, how about you continue the experience and you're going through different scenes just while on the tram and things are happening, almost like a haunted hayride kind of thing, but you're on the studio tour.
You know, I had that same thought on the Terror Tram because one year, I think it was the Jack year, the year they brought Jack over to Hollywood.
I think it was like, what, 2006 or 7?
I'm trying to remember what year it was. But anyways, there was a Terror Tram portion, and I think it was that year where our tram stopped by accident in like one of like the hillside areas. And I actually thought that was part of the show. And I was like, oh my God, are these actors going to pop out of these bushes? I think they could get a lot of mileage out of actors being along the route while you're in the tram.
Oh yeah, I think it would bring so much value to that attraction.
I think so.
And like, I mean, it's people really enjoy it as it is right now, but like year after year, it's been kind of the same walk.
Yeah.
And I think it's time to like, let's think outside the box. Where else can we go? It's very difficult because obviously Universal, they're filming movies and
Yes.
television there, but like if they can find some place on the back lot to switch it up and then also continue the journey, that I think that would be so cool.
Well, also for those of you who don't know, Universal Studios Hollywood, this is a juicy exclusive for that park. They do this thing called the Terror Tram, where you get on the studio tour, they pick you up where you would normally go, and then they drop you off down by the Psycho House, and then you get off the tram, You go through like little kind of makeshift mazes, like, you know, just like some flats are put up there and you get to walk by the Psycho House. It's really cool. You walk through the world's set. It's awesome. I love the Terror Tram, and they try and spruce it up by adding different themes every year, and it's it's for the most part the same experience.
Yeah.
But changing the route would be crazy. Here's where I would change it to. As you were talking, I was like, oh, I know exactly where I would put that tram. I would make it go to Wisteria Lane.
Yep.
And I would make that Wisteria Lane into a Dawn of the Dead kind of attraction where you would have running zombies, and then you would get off there, and then that would be crazy.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I've always thought of Courthouse Square would be another great spot.
Oh yeah, that would be good too.
But they're always doing they're always doing filming down there. But yeah, could you imagine getting off at Courthouse Square and there's like tipped over cars on fire and stuff? And
oh my
mayhem.
God, crazy! Yeah,
yeah.
It could be kind of like an apocalyptic kind of. moment.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, in the future we will hear from you guys there. But
I have one unrealistic request.
That's what this is for.
Hear me out.
Armchair engineering.
Hear me out.
Or armchair imagineering.
Secret Life of Pet Cemetery.
That would be pretty
Holiday
cool.
overlay. All the pets that didn't get adopted have died.
Yeah,
they come back from the grave. You got this extensive queue that could be a little mini maze in itself before you get on your little terror box.
There's no way this would ever happen.
I preface this by saying it would never. It can't happen. You know how much work that would have to take to overhaul that thing?
Oh God.
I actually think it would be better if they did that to the next door neighbor, because I'd always thought how terrifying minions would be if they were murderous. Like if they malfunction and they, instead of like saying stuff like banana, like they just pull out a gun. Or like a knife and they're like chasing you, dude. That would be so scary. Like a blood-soaked minion with that like ever-present smile and the goofy ass goggles. So scary.
They're just collecting bodies in that house. Stacking them up.
So that's what they're doing when they're off screen.
Just like a whole like a whole group of them that have like a body above their heads and they're just like all marching along.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my God.
And they're carnivores.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. You could take that one too, Universal. Moving on to the event preview. Let's just run down all the things you could look forward to at this year's event. And if you've already experienced the event, let us know what you thought of these things. At this time of the recording, like I mentioned, the event isn't even up yet. We're recording this in advance. But we will be reviewing the event at some point over on our bonus pod over on Fourth Wall, fyapod.com, when we've had the chance to actually visit it, because we haven't had the chance. Let's start off with what is coming to both Orlando and Hollywood. There's not a lot of overlap typically, but I feel like there's a fair amount this year.
There's sometimes they'll share properties.
This is great. We got A Quiet Place, and I'm going to be reading you the actual copy from the site because I think it's funny. A Quiet Place. Silence is survival. Make a sound and you won't last long. Monstrous creatures will hunt you down as the world of the first two films comes to terrifying life. I hope that means I'll see Lupita actors and Joseph Quinn actors. That'll be kind of cool. Maybe some cats. I'm very excited for this maze.
I'm excited for it too. I think it's going to be something really unique, and I can't wait to see just how it's all set up. I did enjoy the movies.
I love the movies. Yeah.
So I when they announced that, I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna be pretty cool."
Are you? Oh, I don't know if you could say this because it's. I don't know where this is in Hollywood. I don't think it's the Mummy Maze. I don't.
Oh, I can talk. I can say this public knowledge. So the Quiet Place is located in the old Walking Dead building, the attraction I used to work in. Yeah,
amazing, and that's a great spot because they can really go for it on effects over in that area.
If I was in the Quiet Place franchise right now, I'd die because my stomach is growling, and I'd just be eaten by the monsters. So I'm screwed in that one.
Do you want a snack?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm very excited for this maze. Like I said, I enjoyed the films. That's a great spot for it to land, and we'll see what they do. Moving on, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire coming to both parks. He'll chill you to the bone. Didn't see this film. An ancient artifact has released a chilling new entity, Garaka. He'll stop you cold. Only the Ghostbusters can keep you from getting iced. I'm assuming they're talking about freezing you and not doing the frat practice of icing somebody. That'd be fucking hilarious if this guy
That's
pops
the
out
twist.
and he's like icing. Ah, damn! I got iced. Which, if you don't know, is when someone shows you a Smirnoff Ice bottle and you are forced to get on your knee and chug it immediately. And I'm not capable of chugging, so it always hurt so bad.
Yeah.
And it tasted so bad too. It's so cold. I'm excited for this maze. I enjoyed Ghostbusters when it was a maze over. What year was that? I actually had that written down.
2019.
Was it 2019? Yeah, I think it was 2019. I thought I wrote this down, but maybe I
I
didn't.
think it was 2019 because I think that was the year Orlando did it as well.
And also, it was a rich part of Orlando's history. They had like the Ghostbusters show there. But I enjoyed the maze when they brought it over to Halloween Horror Nights in the past, in I guess 2019. And I'm excited to see what they do here. I didn't see the new film, so maybe I'll see that beforehand. That's also the brilliant thing about these IP mazes, especially when they're based on a current film. It really does encourage you.
Oh yeah,
to go see that,
especially when you exit the haunted house and you're like, that was awesome. Like, now I need to go see it. I think the Ghostbusters one's gonna be really popular with people.
Yeah, I can't wait. Insidious: The Further.
They've come back to haunt you. Insidious: The Further.
Coming to both events. It's not the house that It's not the house that's haunted. You are. Enter the Further as demons try to ensnare you. The red-faced demon will lure you into his lair. Keyface will unlock your fears. And more. And more is also a funny thing to include in like a horror spiel.
The voice is great. It's just like when you watch the Halloween Horror Nights, it's like Halloween Horror Nights.
I know, it's so good.
Fuck yeah! Like I just want him to say that one time in one of the commercials, like Halloween Horror Nights. It's fucking awesome.
Those commercials bang. I'm not gonna lie.
They're amazing.
They should do all of those like monster truck rally commercials, like Halloween Horror Nights coming to you this year. You're gonna shit your pants.
Get your coupons at Taco Bell.
Into the Further. This event is no stranger to the Insidious franchise. It came in 2013 as Into the Further, 2015 Return to the Further, 2017 Beyond the Further, and now it's just back to the Further. They were like, fuck, we've used all the adjectives. Well, why don't we just call it the Further? The 2013 edition was among the highest rated mazes in Horror Nights history, according to dailynews.com, and also me. I really liked that maze a lot.
Yeah, they were scary.
Really good mazes. And it was also in Orlando as Insidious in 2015. And it also made an appearance in Orlando as The Horrors of Blumhouse in 2017.
I heard like from some of my buddies that the Orlando Insidious haunted house was like insanely terrifying.
I believe it. They
Like-
probably have more space there. I now going to that event, I do like the quality of their mazes a little bit more there. Not to say the ones in Hollywood are bad. It's one of my favorite events of all time. But yeah, I would have loved to get into that Insidious maze. And I just think the Further is such a great space to have a maze in.
Oh yeah.
Even watching those films, sometimes when I'm like, my brain is so like skewed now by haunts that when I watch horror movies, there is always a part of my brain that's like, this would be a good maze.
Yeah. Yep.
And Further, when I saw the Further, I was like, oh, this is going to kick ass if they ever bring this to the event.
I think it's gonna be good.
And I'm very excited. Next thing we got coming to both parks is Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. All female, all fearless, all fatal. Get caught in an epic battle as Saskia Van Helsing and the Bride of Frankenstein go up against Dracula's daughter and her monstrous mavens, featuring music by Slash. I love reading these because like when I go to Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm, one of the first things I do is I read the descriptions in the map because they always get me so stoked. So I like that they put these up in advance. Slash, love to hear it.
Oh yeah. The music's always great in those haunted houses that they do.
And I like that they're already leaning into Universal Monsters. Obviously, we got Dark Universe coming up in Epic Universe, so it makes sense that they would start to like soft open that into the public consciousness and get those guys, out there. And especially the dark ride there is supposed to be kind of, I think it'll be somewhat similar to this. In that Victoria Frankenstein, right?
Yeah, and with like the haunted houses, it's like an all-female cast, and I think that's
awesome.
pretty awesome. The Bride of Frankenstein haunted house a couple years ago was so fun. I loved that haunted house.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're kind of bringing that back in a new way with even more characters is really cool.
I think it's going to kick ass.
I got a very actually it's funny that we haven't talked it because they didn't have obviously Horror Nights here in 2020, but they had mazes in 2020 over in Orlando, but they were like very like they had like these like
Yep.
plexiglass screens, like they couldn't get close that close to you or whatever.
It was
So I
still so much
remember
fun.
I remember seeing Bride of Frankenstein at that one.
Yep.
And still I think that was my favorite maze there. They only had a few because it wasn't like a full-fledged
Yeah.
They only
Horror
had,
Nights.
I think it was Bride and Tooth Fairy was
Mhm.
was open. Yeah.
Now let's move on to some of the juicy exclusives. Here's the ones for Hollywood. These are the ones that are only coming to Hollywood. And just as a rundown, there's 9 mazes total this year, counting Terror Tram. There's 4 scare zones and 1 show. Really cool to see them expand their lineup. Hopefully that helps with some of those lines, because my goodness.
Oh yeah.
First one we got is the Terror Tram. Enter the Blumhouse. Terrifying Blumhouse characters have taken over the Terror Tram, face the murderous android Megan, the Grabber, and more. Looks to be pretty damn extensive here. I just was on the studio tour yesterday, and it does look like they're building a little bit more than they typically would, especially by the Psycho House. For
Yeah,
this.
I noticed that too. I went on it the other day when I was at the park with some family friends, and I was like, "Oh wow, the Terror Tram is actually pretty more elaborate than it was the previous couple of years." So I do love to see it.
I also think it's a testament to how big this event is, in that you are working the event, and you also it's so big that you don't even know some of the things that are going on in the park, and that's kind of cool to be able to work it and also be a fan of it, and then maybe experience it as a fan, right?
Yeah, like I haven't walked through anything. I don't know what anything looks like. It's all kind of a mystery to me as well. So like some people, will sit there and be like, "Oh, you know everything." It's like, no, I don't. I still need to like experience it myself as well, and I can't wait to. So yeah, it's kind of like going in blind, because where I'm working is only just one small area of the park versus like this entire event that is super expansive.
It sounds like Theme Park Obsession fans also are Monster Truck Rally. You know everything. This coupon code didn't work. Do you get to experience the event? Are there days that they like let you guys rotate out?
No. So like usually they'll do something in the season where like, okay, we're gonna walk down to some of the haunted houses, and a big group of us will walk down, and we'll walk through all together, and that's kind of like how we get to experience things. And there's some years that I just don't like. The last time we had the weekend maze, I didn't even see that. It
was fun.
I heard it was really cool, and I was a little bummed out that I didn't have a chance to see it, but I'm hoping this year I get a chance.
I was about to say
see
you'll have it this year, which is our next maze, the Weekend Nightmare Trilogy. Journey into the Weekend Sinister Trilogy. The Weekend returns in a new haunted house, spawned from After Hours, Dawn FM, and a horrifying new tale. Get ensnared by the most iconic moments inspired by his music videos and live performances. His get to room is just like a laptop playing YouTube videos of like his music. I'm not gonna lie though. I'm never gonna underestimate this guy, because the maze. I was just confused at how they would make him scary. But I guess when you think about like there's a lot of psychedelic kind of like aspects to his music videos, and they were really creative with the scares in this maze in 2022. So I'm excited to see it come back.
Yeah, I heard nothing but really good things about it, and I think they're gonna knock it out of the park again with this one.
Oh, by the way, did they throw any footage from that a show he did with Lily Rose Depp?
No, they
What
didn't.
was the Carte Blanche?
Yeah, I can't recall. That was the scariest thing I've seen all year. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Legacy of Leatherface. This tagline is so good. You're fresh meat. Leatherface and his cannibalistic kin will lure you into their gore-filled slaughterhouse. Fall victim to a gruesome original story never seen on screen in honor of the 1974 movie's 50th anniversary. That was a run-on sentence, and I almost ran out of breath. But I'm stoked. It's great that they're celebrating the anniversary. I love this film. It feels like a snuff film.
Yeah, well, and this house is like probably one of my most anticipated, like at least top 2 or top 3. This one is up there. I think it's gonna be really good.
Are you a big Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy?
I like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. My dad is like ultimate like Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. But I do enjoy the films, and I think the mazes that they've done, or they call them houses at Horror Nights, but the houses that they've done at the event over the years have always been really good.
I agree. And I wonder, I can't remember because let me go through the years they've actually done this in Hollywood. 2007 and 2008, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, back in business. 2012 was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Saw is the Law. 2016 was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Blood Brothers. And then 2021 was just the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is not what this is, but it's I don't recall if they recreated in my opinion, one of the scariest and most gruesome kills I've ever seen in a horror film, even though there's no blood in it. It's that moment when he opens that door, whacks that guy on the head with his big ass hammer, and then he just starts like seizing on the ground. There's something deeply unsettling about that.
That was very.
And then whacks him again,
disturbing.
so he stops moving.
It's a very disturbing scene in the film.
Yeah,
it's the whole film in general is just like I always got the heebie-jeebies watching it because the scene, just all the scenes of him picking up people and putting them on the fucking hook. Meat hook, like, and that's going like right where your tailbone and stuff is. Like, could you fucking imagine that? I'd pass out. I'd be like,
so beefy too, like to be able to pick up people like little kids.
Yeah, it's a terrifying film.
Also, when that scene that I was talking about, when he walks in the house, you hear those like weird noises coming from the house that are like
yeah, they're like because they're like hoarders and stuff.
Yeah, they're like pigs and stuff, but they're not. They sound like a human making the noise of a pig. It's unsettling, but I hope we see some cool scenes from the film, particularly that one.
We might even get a poo room in that one because that maze is probably going to smell like shit.
That's true. I'm sure. I mean, if you put me on a hook, it's going to turn into a poo room. Monstros 2 is coming. Monstros 2, The Nightmares of Latin America. 3 pesadillas, millones de gritos. Revisit the infernal rider El Charro, or he'll take your soul. Don't turn your back on the devil dog, El Cadejo, or you'll be lost forever. And you'd better behave, or the boogeyman El Cucuy will get you. This is great. Most of you don't know this, but I am half Mexican. I don't recall El Cadejo. El Cucuy, that's a classic. The boogeyman.
Yeah.
And obviously La Llorona, but El Charro even. I don't even know who the hell that is. I'll have to look that up. Maybe I'm outing myself right now as not a true Mexican, but I don't recall that. My mom would always just torture me with La Llorona. But I'm very excited about this. Last year's maze.
Oh my God. It was
so goddamn good.
It was so good. And it was absolutely gorgeous. Like, I mean, that was one of the prettiest houses I've seen in a while. And shout out to the designers and stuff that put all this stuff together. I mean, it was gorgeous. And the facade, because you can see the facade in the park right now when you walk by. And I mean, it looks just as stunning as it did last year, and it's a little different. And I think it's going to be another sleeper hit.
No, the facade looks incredible. I just showed it to my nephew yesterday, and he was terrified.
It's so cool.
He was like, "Are those dolls bad?" And I was like, "I think so. I think they're bad."
There's one like hanging upside down by its ankles, and I'm like, whoever put that one up, God tier right there.
Very good. And he was just like, "Gross." Let's go on Secret Life of Pets, and I was like, "All right." Next maze. These are all juicy exclusives for Hollywood, which is really cool. Dead Exposure, Death Valley. These zombies just went nuclear. Enter a top secret government facility where an experiment to create super soldiers has gone horribly wrong, turning people into radioactive zombies, and they escape just as you arrive. Pretty cool. I actually, when they released they released a little kind of like audio sneak peek for this, if you recall, in this year's media, and it had just the radiation kind of like meter going off. I actually thought, are they doing a Fallout maze?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of I think a lot of rumors,
a lot of chatter.
Around, yeah.
But I'm actually more stoked to see that it's an original, and I actually didn't even realize that it was over in Orlando first. So
yeah, Dead Exposure's been a reoccurring story out there, and
awesome.
I like the IP stuff. The IP stuff is always cool, but I love the original haunted houses, and that's what I think that's why I love Orlando by a few smidgens, just because they have so many originals out there.
No, I agree.
And I'm glad at least we're doing the Dead Exposure kind of story in Hollywood's unique way over here.
No, I'm very excited for this, and just like you, I love original mazes, which is why I was so stoked to see Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, because to me it was like, wow, this is kind of like the spirit of Knott's with the budget of Halloween Horror Nights.
Absolutely.
And I was like, this is incredible. Moving on to Scare Zones, that does it for the mazes in total for Halloween Horror Nights. We got Luchadores Monstrosos, which is like a luchador kind of themed Scare Zone. We have Murder of Crows. It says you foolishly ventured into a massive crow's nest. Happens all the time.
I hate when that happens.
Chainsaw Punks. Guy, you gotta get your chainsaw guys out there. And Skull Lords. You could see the royal court. Actually, they're sitting there right now. If you go to the park, they're sitting by the fire tower. And then they have one show. The Purge, Dangerous Waters. I loved this last year.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
I'm a huge Waterhead though. I love Waterworld so much. The show, not the film. Anybody who's seen the Waterworld episode of this podcast knows that. So just to see it kind of be reimagined was really fun to me, because I also loved back in the day when they did Slaughterworld.
Slaughterworld, yeah, it was a classic,
which was awesome.
I wish they would bring it back, but times are a little different now. So the Purge thing makes so much sense for that arena, and it was such a huge hit last year. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool.
I wonder how different the show will be this year.
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sure they're going to change some things up.
Yeah.
I would think so. I don't know if they're going to do the
I'm
same
sure the
thing.
base will be very similar, but either way, I loved the show. Very excited for it. And also it's a nice just night ender for me.
Oh, for sure.
Cause like, I will answer this later because you guys have some questions for us about how to conquer the park. Moving on to Orlando Juicy Exclusives, and then we'll get into Q&A. For mazes, we got Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. I don't know if I'm going to continue reading unless you do want me to continue reading out what these guys are. Should we just breeze on right through this?
That's whatever you want to do. I mean, if it's going to take, you can read some good ones.
It's going to take forever. But Monstros, I don't know if it's a complete repeat of the one we got last year, but I would imagine similar. And if it is, you're in for a treat, Orlando, because it kicks ass.
And I'm sure Orlando's going to have, the set design in there is going to be insane.
I can't wait. And then we got Slaughter Cinema 2. I think Slaughter Cinema was last year, right?
No, the last time Slaughter Cinema was there was in 2018.
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking of the one in Knott's.
Yeah, Cinema Slasher.
Yeah, Cinema Slasher.
Yeah.
I mixed them up. But I haven't seen Slaughter Cinema 1. I hope so.
It was so much fun.
Get ready for the final cut is the tagline for that one. That's going to be great. I love a movie theater themed haunted house. They did this at Knott's last year and it was great.
Yeah, because you got like the dead theater, and then like you're like, one of these is a real person.
It's a classic.
The rest are like, it's like always on edge there.
That's got to be one of my favorite. That actually is one of the few gags that really does get me unnerved and scared, because it's a jump scare that is coming. And I like that. I like the kind of dramatic irony of that, of knowing that there's like like when they do, sometimes there'll be like a hall of like statues. One of them is a real one. Love that.
Yeah, classic.
We got Museum Deadly exhibits. This is going to be fucking cool, I think.
I think so too.
This actually might be the one I'm most excited for. I don't know why. I just think that's such a cool idea to kind of like Evil Nightmare in the Museum, or Night in the Museum.
Yeah.
Why didn't they call it that? Nightmare in the
Museum. Probably
Museum.
because it was close to the name. They don't want. They want to be careful with the copyright.
That's
stuff.
probably true. Major Sweets Candy Factory. That's a candy factory themed haunted house. It's going to be awesome. They got a killer sweet tooth as the tagline.
Now that's the one I'm kind of the most anticipated for, because it's just, I think it's going to be one of those like dark horse moments where you're like, holy shit, that was like awesome.
To me, that was the Holidays maze. Holidays in Hell.
Oh, Holidays in Hell, yeah.
I love that maze.
It's a fun one.
I think there's something to be said too when you take like a very like bright subject matter and contrast it with horror, and it makes it all the more creepy. So I'm getting that vibe there.
Next up, we got Goblin's Feast. They'll feast on your flesh.
That's
going into a goblin village, I guess.
I think that one's gonna be really cool. It might have some like Scary Tales vibes to it, which is another reoccurring haunted house that they've done in Orlando. And also just like that whole kind of like fairy tales gone wrong theme is something that even Knott's does, and I always think it's to great effect. Like one of my favorite Knott's mazes of all time was Pinocchio Unstrung.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
So I'm jealous that you guys are going to get to see this maze. Triplets of Terror. I'm going to read this description because this one is so you're invited to the Barmy Triplets birthday celebration, but their kind of party involves recreating the murders of their entire family. That's pretty self-explanatory, actually. I don't know why I was confused by that. Pretty disturbing stuff there.
I think this one's going to be really good.
It's going to be fucked up.
I've been seeing like people's reactions on X because they've been doing the behind the scenes tours already out there, and they're like, "Dude, the Triplets of Terror one is going to be like insane."
I guess they're going to spread the murders out. I was like, how do you make this into an entire maze? But I like that they're taking a stab at, honestly, 3-act storytelling here for an original idea that's not based on IP.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. And then we'll go through the scare zones really quickly here. We have the Enter the Blumhouse scare zone. You're going to see all your favorite little characters out there. Duality of Fear. This is interesting. You choose a path. And I do recall this actually last year as well, that you have different ways you could go through scare zones. Not this exact one, but something like it.
Well, they did in the Dueling Dragons haunted house. They did a
Choose Thy Fate.
Choose Thy Fate.
This
So
is
good.
a Sinister and then a Surreal. You could choose between those two paths. We have Demon Queens. That looks pretty cool too. Swamp of the Undead. I love a scary Florida theme. Lean into it. Why not? We're Florida. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Torture Fair. Come on now. Ren Fair. Really funny event. Wouldn't it be crazy if it was scary? Like that idea. And then we have their show, which is Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus. I don't know about this. I kind of wish they had something that told more of a story, like The Purge, like we have, or in the past, Bill and Ted.
Yeah, bring the Bill and Ted back.
Everyone wants Bill. I mean, Knott's brought back the hanging. Come on, let's bring back Bill and Ted.
But I don't know. This is just kind of like a scary, like a little creepy carnival kind of thing. I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's impressive, but I like storytelling more when it comes to my scary shows. And with that, that's all of this year's event for Halloween Horror Nights Orlando and Hollywood. Let's move on to the Q&A. But before we do that, let's once again thank our sponsors. And we are back. Let's finish the show off with the question and answer session. We gathered these questions from the FYA Pod Instagram account. We gathered these in advance from you guys, and we're going to answer all the ones that we can. I wrote down some of them, and then I'm going to go to my phone for some of the others. This one's actually such a nuts and bolts question. Nico_D'Angelo04 says, how do you do food for the event? Outside before or periodically inside? I just thought that was very. I always do outside before. I don't stop for food. I get like a snack at some point, but I get a big meal before, and then I'll have a snack when I sit down for a show or something. Just because it's you need every minute you could possibly have in this park.
I always tell people to go, or like at least for the Hollywood event. I mean, it kind of works for Orlando as well, but get there early, go to City Walk, sit down, have a bite to eat there.
Yes,
at least a few hours before the event starts, and then you can go in and not have to worry about it, and you can get like a pretzel or something in there.
Yeah.
And it's actually
don't do what Ryan and I did last year at Orlando. That was like one of the saddest burgers I think I ever had in my life. I forget where it was. I remember it was some diner.
Oh my God! It was at the Wharf. We had it at the Wharf.
I was like, was it like one of their specialty like food items or whatever?
It was like some diner thing. No, it was just a bad burger.
we waited way too
burger.
long. This was like an 11 p.m. midnight burger.
Oh,
it was because we were exhausted because we had done Universal and Islands of Adventure during the day, and we needed a break, so we slept before we went into the event, and then we tried to power through, and it was like 11 p.m. We were like, we're running on fumes.
Well, actually, you guys would know better than me. How crowded is In-N-Out before this event starts?
Oh, I'm sure it's packed. I'm sure it's a madhouse.
Get out of there. Don't do it.
That's all the traffic on the freeway. They're just going in and out.
Exactly. Actually, let's just go straight into this question. Hannah Becklum says, best tips to get through as many mazes in one night. And also, Loris also asked this question, but they asked it in a much funnier fashion. I want to read it because it's not the exact question, but I did laugh really hard when I read this. It was optimal maze order for someone who is raw dogging it. No early entry or express. Here's my tips. And if for those of you who have heard me tell this before, I apologize. But back in the day, I had a mission to just get every maze done, everything done, and I had an exact order in which I would do it, and I would write this insane itinerary out of like, what time code? We're going to hit this maze this time, we're going to hit this maze this time, bathroom break 5 minutes here, and at the beginning of the email, I would actually send out, hey, this is my itinerary for the event. If you want to come with me, you could come with me. Just know that I'm going to stick to this itinerary, and if you fall behind, I will leave you behind. And I would send that email to my parents. And they would follow me as well. And then, and over the years, the group grew bigger and bigger. And I just felt like one of those tour guides carrying like a little flag. But here's my tips. For Hollywood, early access ticket, it's $10. You get in at 5:30, and you get access to a select few mazes. Usually they'll make them some of the bigger IP mazes. Like I remember in years past, it's been things like The Exorcist, or I think even Insidious was on there one of those times. It's usually those lower lot mazes from my recollection.
Yeah.
But totally worth it. Being able to knock out a couple mazes before the event even starts. It's really the only way you're going to be able to knock these out. And also for Orlando, you could do the Stay and Scream, which is if you go during the daytime, they'll let you stay in the park in a special zone, and you're got that head start ahead of everybody for the nighttime event. Monitor wait times throughout the month. I would regularly check the app.
Download the Universal app.
Yes,
that's going to be like one of your saving graces all night.
Back in the day, I actually there before they had the app, there is this site called HHNWaitTimes.com. And it was somewhat inaccurate, but pretty accurate, I found, of what the wait times were for the mazes throughout the night. And I was able to see at 7 p.m. when the park opens, which one is the one that gets the most wait, which at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And I monitored that throughout. I went later in the event. I went maybe the second week, third week, and I had 3 weeks of data to form a route. And then I stuck to that route. And that's how I was able to put time code and know that at this time I'll be walking out of this maze and getting into line for this maze. It's a lot, but if you are hell bent on getting on every maze, it's really the only way you could do it. If you're going later, check in on Horror Night Nightmares Discord. They used to have a forum that I used to go on and read trip reports. People will often tell you what worked for them, what didn't work. It's a Discord now. Shout out to Horror Night Nightmares. Eat dinner before. We talked about this. Plan on snacking later in the night once the lines are already long. Do not ride rides.
Yeah, the waste of time.
Until the very end, if you've gotten all the mazes done. And honestly, a lot of times I would just redo a maze. That's not true, because those lines by the end of the night are 2-3 hours.
It depends. Sometimes the last hour of the event.
That's true.
They'll, especially the lower lot ones, because people are working their way back upstairs. Those lines will be somewhat shorter. So yeah, I mean, if you want to hit up a couple haunted houses multiple times, near the end of the night is a good time to do it.
Although what I did notice last year in Orlando was by the time we were leaving the park, which was right around closing time, the Exorcist maze, which was super packed for most of the night, since that was toward the front of the park, you wouldn't we had express pass, but it was the same wait as the regular queue. You just walked on. So I'm wondering if you wait till the really end, and then start by going to the end of the park, which is what we did. I think we went to the back of the park to start.
You want to go to the back for Orlando. And actually, even for Hollywood, I would go down to the lower lot. Usually, as a rule of thumb, I would probably go down to the lower lot mazes, because people are lazy. Once they walk into the park, they see a maze, they go, "Oh, I'll go on that."
Yeah, that's why the one at the the Parisian Courtyard is always really busy at the start of the night, because everyone's going there. I always tell people, if you can get to the event as early as possible, if you can get to Universal as early as possible, get your meal in and everything, just get in the park. Even if you don't have the early entry, as long as you're there at the gate, you'll get in by 7 or maybe even earlier, and then just go right to the lower lot. And you could also use reverse psychology. If everyone's going to the weekend this year, okay, well, let's just do it in reverse. What is the haunted house that maybe people are not going to when they go down there, and then do it that way.
No, for sure. And also, if you don't have early entry and you are there, right at the beginning, you'll also get treated to the opening ceremonies, which is really cool. It's when they basically drop the rope and let you walk into the park, but they have a little ceremony to do there with some thematic elements. They're really fun, and usually the chainsaw folks will come just running at you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And then make sure, if you're going with a group of non-sickos, this happens a lot. I've done it before. Let them know that this is your plan and you're sticking to it.
Yep.
Tell them hey, if you come with me, that's fine. We ain't going to be having a midnight meal. We ain't going to be fucking going to Johnny Rockets or some shit. And
no.
We're not going to be getting on rides. We're going to be walking fast, and we're going to stick to this plan. And if that sounds good to you, come along. But if not, I'm good going by myself.
Did you include bathroom breaks on that itinerary
I did.
email?
I had the 5-minute bathroom breaks.
Or just wear a diaper. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah. If you really want to be efficient.
No. Yeah, we're not sponsored by MeUndies, but
you're going to shit your pants anyway.
Sell me diapers.
Yeah.
I'd buy them just for this event. But just let people know you're marching to the beat of your own drum. Because trust me, you don't want to have this argument. And I'm saying this from experience. This is why I sent out this email. You do not want to have this experience when you're in the park of people going, my feet hurt. Or I'm hungry. Or could we go in Jurassic Park and you have to be the bad guy and be like, no, we're not doing that. So if you let them know from the very beginning, you look them in the eye like that dude in Captain Phillips and go, I'm the captain. You listen to me. just know that they'll know who's the captain, and that way you don't have to have an awkward interaction in the park. And if you have to, you might have to go alone in that case.
Well, and for people that like want to go on rides, at least at the Universal Studios Hollywood, they do a day-night combo.
They
ticket.
do.
So you go there at 2 p.m. and then you can do the rides during the day, and then by the time Horror Nights starts, you're only just doing the haunted houses, and that's actually a really good ticket to purchase.
I do, and I mean this with no disrespect to anybody who might be offended by this. I feel like the people who want to go on the rides in the middle of the Halloween Horror Nights event are the type of people who wouldn't want to do the day-night thing. They wouldn't want to go to the park for the daytime and then do it at night. They just want to do it while I'm there right now at nighttime.
Yeah, and they're just like there because they're like, oh, it's the Halloween vibe, whatever. And it's like, you should do the things that are that are only there once a year. Like,
and look, I realize I'm coming off intense right now, but I take this very seriously.
I know, same. Like there's been so many times like over the years I've gotten pissed off at my friends or whatever. I'm like, no, I don't want to go on fucking bumper cars right now. We need to go.
What are you, out of your mind? Bumper cars?
Yeah, like, dude, come on. Let's go through the haunted houses. They're only here once.
No, I think what was lost, and what I also communicated in future emails was like, look, I live for this. It's an unhealthy obsession. I look forward to this more than anything every year. I love Halloween. I love all the decor and like the scary movies, but I also specifically love it because I get to go to these curated Halloween events, and we're lucky enough to have them. We're in SoCal. We're over in Florida. Do not ruin this for me.
Exactly.
I think it's just more difficult for the people that don't have like an annual pass to that park.
Exactly.
Sure.
Whereas they're like, well, I don't want to like, I'm coming here for the like one time this year. Like I want to try and get a couple rides with that. But with an annual pass to Universal,
once again,
I don't have that temptation anymore, but
this is why you table set. You got to do the table setting up front. I'm just, that's my that might be my number one tip is like, you might be able to get through it, but if you will be slowed down. And this was told to my parents. Next one from KG_Lose. Is RIP tour worth it? I've never done it, honestly.
I haven't done it, but if you can afford it, if it's something that is in your budget, I highly recommend it.
I've seen people make videos about it, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're pampered all night. Like it's something that you don't have to worry about. Like, yeah, if you have the money and you don't want to worry about the stress of having to be like, oh shit, I got to go to this maze, and this maze in a certain amount of time. Just do the RIP tour because you have a guide for a few hours, you get the buffet, and you get unlimited front of the line, not just for the haunted houses, but the rides all evening, even when your guide is gone. So it's like, yeah, if you don't mind spending the $500 or whatever, and you get valet parking and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a good ticket to purchase if people can do it.
No, the only thing is I'm such a control freak that I want to go to the mazes in the order I want to go to them.
Yeah, when you do the tour, you're doing it in like their specific order.
But it does sound nice to have someone walk me around and do that for me.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Maybe one day I'll do it. Yeah, it's the same. And obviously the caveat to all of this is if you could afford the express pass, that's the surefire way to do that. But even if you have an express pass, you still got to show up early because express pass lines, at least in Hollywood, the past couple years I've gone, they are up to 30 minutes to an hour as well by the end of around 10, 11 p.m.
Yeah.
It gets there. So you want to hit those express pass lines early as well.
Well, here's the flip side of the coin, because some express options, you can only do the express once per haunted house. So if you get that ticket option, what I tell people to do is do everything you can through the standby first, without using your express pass.
That's
do
smart,
as much shit as you can. You take a break throughout the night or whatever. And then like last couple hours of the event, boom, then start using the express pass. And then that way you can go through everything twice.
That's true. And actually that is something I had done in the past, but I've noticed in the years recent that express pass line
it's difficult.
It gets long now too.
Yeah. But they sell like an unlimited thing now too. That's probably why it also adds to the length of the line.
That's true. Here's a good one from GamerD047. What is a haunted house that you have always wanted to do or work but haven't had the opportunity to?
So a few years, when I first worked Halloween Horror Nights, 2011, and I worked in a haunted house called Alice Cooper Welcome to My Nightmare.
Oh, I love that maze.
Yeah, that was
really was fun. That a second or third?
It was the first year.
Okay.
And then in 2012, I did another haunted house at Universal, and it was Alice Cooper Goes to Hell in 3D.
Yeah.
And working in that haunted house was really fun too. But I have wanted them to do a third version of of that story.
Yeah.
And if they do, I want to do it.
I thought they did 3. I didn't realize they only did 2.
No, they only did 2. They only
Huh.
did the 2 haunted houses, and it was kind of sad, like nearing the end of the season in 2012, because you get to know your cast, and a lot of the castmates that I worked with in that haunted house were from the previous year in 2011, from the first Alice Cooper maze. So, it's like, okay, let's hope that they bring it back for a 3rd year so we can all come back together for the next year. But they didn't, and so we're like, oh, okay, this is probably the end of it. So I would love for them to bring back an Alice Cooper haunted house.
And you have a killer soundtrack in there.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's great. And then like Alice Cooper walked through, and that was like really cool.
Oh, that's really awesome.
Oh my god, I was like shitting my pants because they had like a camera crew and everything, and they're like,
did you get him?
Yeah, like we obviously I didn't scare him because like he's just so
that would feel so good though if you got him.
But like I was so nervous because it's like, yeah, if you can't fuck that up, like
No.
you're filming it and like
yeah.
this is the expectation, and he came into the room and big smiles, and I saw the opportunity because I saw the powers that be just kind of like give me a nod, and I knew that was the time to do it, and I jumped out, and he was like, "This is so cool!" Like he was loving it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine having your own maze at Halloween Horror Nights. That would be the crowning achievement of my life.
Yeah, that would be. I would love to work with them one of these years. A theme park obsession, Halloween horror. It would just be a poo room every single room. just be a shit room every single.
All poo, no breaks.
Every time you say poo room, I'm like thinking of like that Blood and Honey.
I've seen that movie. When I read this question, I had an immediate maze that jumped to mind, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's, but it is. And it stems from I think it was a Travel Channel special. Or maybe it was Art of the Scare. It was one of these specials on Halloween Horror Nights, and they featured Island Under Siege.
Okay, that was the Travel Channel special. I love that.
It's a great special.
Yeah.
And they talk about Island Under Siege, and they talk about Maximum Carnage.
Oh yeah, Maximum. Man.
And the idea of Maximum Carnage and Island Under Siege it's a brilliant idea, by the way. It's the idea that all of the villains, all of the superhero villains have won.
Oh yeah.
And they've killed the superheroes.
Yeah.
And in Maximum Carnage, you see, this is anecdotal now because this is just people saying it who were lucky enough to go into this maze. You see like the bodies of these superheroes.
Yeah, and apparently Marvel was very upset about.
Oh, they were not pleased.
So that's why they didn't bring that attraction back for another season.
They were furious.
They were done. Yeah,
I think it actually changed. About a week into the run, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Marvel got wind of it and they were like, take this out. So there's only like a handful of people out there that really got to see it in its full glory with these like eviscerated bodies of like Spider-Man and stuff like that.
That's special. You guys can see the special on YouTube. You can type it in like Travel Channel Halloween Horror Night special and it'll pop up. And
It's great.
I love it.
I watch it all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That and Art of the Scare. I love Art of the Scare as well. No, but it's a crazy maze. I wish I could have gone through it. It's just a great idea. There's something so viscerally upsetting about seeing a superhero dead. I don't know what it is. Like I remember when I saw The Dark Knight Rises and he got his ass kicked by Bane. It like deeply upset me. I just remember being in the theater being like, "Damn, don't touch Batman like that." And if just to see a body, I just can't even imagine how scary that must have been for kids. And obviously, Marvel was like, "Yeah, I agree, Ryan. Let's get that out of there."
Yeah, well, especially now that Disney owns them, they're like, "Oh, hail to the no."
No, definitely not. So we'll never see another Marvel themed maze ever again, especially not in Superhero Island. I also wonder if that's why Islands of Adventure stopped doing the event. Like, I wonder if this kind of played into it.
I mean, maybe it also might have been a logistical thing too. They just wanted to keep it over at the other park because it's maybe easier to it's probably easier to build the haunted houses at that park because at Islands of Adventure, there's a lot of backstage, but I'd feel like Universal Studios has a lot easier of a backstage access.
I think so. And then also, I wanted to do any of the body collector mazes over in Orlando. I also wanted to do the Cabin in the Woods maze they had in 2013.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love that film. And
So good.
Speaking of like what I was thinking about earlier, when I watch a movie and I think, oh, this would be a great maze. That crazy part in that movie where the all the monsters get released from their cages.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this would be the most incredible maze if you could do this.
How would you pull that off though?
I watched YouTube videos. It looks sick. I hope they'll
I
never
guess
bring
like
it.
projections and stuff. And
It looked pretty practical.
I forgot what they ended up doing in the house. I'm sure it was really good.
I'm sad I couldn't experience it, and I don't think they're ever going to bring it back. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
because like I also would like to see a maze made off of this crazy film called 13 Ghosts.
Oh, dude, I've been wanting them to do that for years.
Okay, so I'm not alone. Alone.
I've been, for those that watch my channel, like every year I mention that. I'm like, they need to do a 13 Ghost maze.
Dude, they'll never do it.
They'll never do it.
It wasn't a popular enough movie, which I don't think it did well. I feel like it did well because I watched the shit out of that movie so much.
It's just not one of those like cult classic kind of films.
It should be.
13 Ghosts, Hellraiser, Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers would be awesome too.
I mean, like, I even want them to do a Terrifier haunted house.
Oh, that would be. I mean, also for a while I wanted the Trick or Treat maze, and they eventually did. They're doing that at Six Flags this year.
Yeah.
No, a 13 Ghost maze would be incredible.
No,
Basically, Byron.
yeah.
So there's this house. It's like a puzzle house, like a haunted mansion, and inside of it are 13 ghosts, and it's like framed as like these are the 13 ghosts you must like encounter at some point.
And they're like gnarly.
They're
Okay.
gnarly.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it used to scare the shit out of me as a kid. There's this one guy called the Jackal. He had like a cage on his head.
Yeah.
That was fucked up. I wish they would do it. Let's go speed round. This comes from Postmortem Mads. How can I be a cast member? I want to be a cast member. I want to be cool. This is obviously to you, Dylan, because I have no idea how you do this. I assume you audition.
Yeah, you'll audition, and the auditions happen every year, usually around the summertime, because it does take them time to cast people, and then obviously you get put in a position, all that kind of stuff. And they usually do like a public audition, and they'll send out a notification if you go into like Universal like auditions.com. You'll be able to see like the public posts of when these auditions happen. And obviously, without revealing what happens in the audition, you do, some general improvisational things, and then you just got to hope that you get picked. But it's a fun process, and anyone can audition. I feel like Universal's always looking for everybody, because there's so many different properties that they do at the event, and I mean, they're literally looking for every body type. So.
That's also why I like Halloween Horror Nights and Not Scary Farm and any haunt in general, is that it's supporting live entertainment. It's supporting performers getting out there. I like that.
Do they call you cast members, by the way, or do they still go with team members?
I think at Universal, it's team members.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't call you scare actors?
Yeah, they'll call us scare actors as well. But I think the Universal like employee is the team member, and then Disney's cast member, and then I think Six Flags.
Yeah,
is
I just didn't know if it was
something
any different for like scare actors or.
No, they still like I'm seeing shadow people walk by. It's like
pretty on theme.
No, I they call us scare actors as well.
Next question. This comes from Izzy Gonzalez. Which maze/zone isn't getting enough hype?
Okay, I just had this in my head the other day and I totally forgot it. I think the one that is going to be the sleeper hit is probably the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I feel like a lot of people are talking about it, but I wasn't tripping. There was somebody here. There was somebody here. Yeah, it'd probably be that one, or maybe Dead Exposure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because it was in Orlando, it's being slept on a little bit. But I also think, I don't know. I feel like Monstro still is getting slept on, even though that maze was incredible last year.
Yeah.
We'll see. On that note, just being Jace, what house are you most excited for this year at Hollywood or Orlando?
Texas. Well, for Hollywood, it's the Texas house. I think I'm really excited for that one. And Insidious. I think that one's going to be really good. And in Orlando, definitely the Candy house, Major Suites. And I'm really interested to see the Goblin house. Like
I think is that a house? That's a house, right? Oh yeah. Oh my God, that's going to be awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I like that kind of theme, and I don't think I've ever heard of I know we've been in fairy tales, but in terms of just a goblin-centric maze, I don't think I've ever actually seen
I think it's
anything
gonna be
like
badass.
Bleo.the says, what is the scariest maze you have ever experienced at Halloween Horror Nights?
Dead Exposure 2018 in Orlando.
Really?
And like, again, this is coming from someone that knows every trick in the book. Like,
yeah.
But that maze caught me off guard so much. I mean, it scared the shit out of me. I was like, I had never jumped that much in a haunted house before ever. And the whole gag of that maze was like, the facade was it's just like a zombie maze. This is what the theme is. But the facade was this like triage area, and it was very bright, like incredibly bright lights. And then the minute you walked into the haunted house, it was pitch black, and you can only see things when a UV would like light would flash, and then they highlighted all the things in UV paint. So when it would flash, you would see the sets, but then they would disappear when the lights would turn off. And then there would be a brief moment for like maybe 2 or 3 seconds where it would just be pitch black, and you know what the fuck is going on. And that was literally the most intense. And I was with a lot of my besties, and we all, worked horror nights and stuff. And we all got out of that thing. We're like, oh my God, that was intense.
I like that kind of anytime they play with lighting so that your senses are kind of like come out. They're not able to be exercised to determine where people are in the room.
Yeah.
Like when they have one of the effects I've seen, not at Halloween Horror Nights as much, but at Knott's, is they will have a strobe light at the end of a tunnel. Yeah. And it's flashing into your face, and every time it does, it temporarily blinds you, and in that time scare actors can move from one part to another and accomplish this effect where they could be 10 feet in front of you, and then in an instant it feels like they're in your face, which is awesome.
I mean, Dead Exposure had all those tricks,
and that's what the UV light
I mean, it was just insane. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this I hope they keep doing this, because this is, I mean, they even warned you before you went in, like, hey, if you have epilepsy or anything like that, this is not for you. And it was an intense attraction for sure.
Insidious also 2013 is probably my answer. It's just, I love the franchise. It was cool to see the further. And it's this question's interesting to me too, because so much of this to me is dependent on the cast that night. Sure. There are certain times where it's a well-designed maze, but just for whatever reason, your timing was off where you were in line, or maybe folks were tired. It's all, and that's part of the beauty of the event. It's a living, breathing thing.
Oh, for sure.
Let's go to favorite house.
That's what I was going to mention. Was I think so much is the timing, because there's a Bigfoot maze we went on in Orlando, which I wouldn't have thought would be that scary, yet they got me again and again and again, like back to back.
So good.
Yeah.
Where
the Bigfoot one was fun last year. That one,
but
really
I didn't go into it expecting much, but that scared me more than pretty much every maze there.
Yeah,
and I think it was just the timing worked out that way.
More cryptid mazes.
Or was it Yeti or?
Yeah, the thing was Yeti Campground Kills.
Yeah, Yeti Kills.
Okay,
Yeti Campground Kills.
Yeah.
Mary Sean says favorite house you worked on.
Favorite house I've worked in would be Alice Cooper.
Amazing. It was a great maze. I remember that was like when I was really getting into the hype of the event. And so I always remembered that maze and that time fondly. Oh, this is good. Christina9397. What horror IP would you want to see at Halloween Horror Nights that hasn't been represented yet? And mine would be 13 Ghosts.
Just to switch it up, I would say Hills Have Eyes.
Have they not done that? Oh my God.
No, they've never done it.
Let me think a little bit longer about this too, because Hills Have Eyes is really good. There's some really iconic scenes you could have in there.
Oh yeah,
like
the baby brutal
death scene is crazy, bro.
Those movies are brutal. I mean, they're really good horror movies, but they're very brutal. So I don't know if they would do it because of that, but I think Hills Have Eyes would be good.
You could do something contemporary like the Terrifier, like that clown guy with the little but I find I always get more excited for the ones that are like classic horror that you haven't seen. So like Hellraiser does come to mind. Yeah. Just because the characters are so iconic.
Oh yeah.
Byron, do you have anyone while I'm thinking?
Fuck it, Midsommar.
There you go. They put a little flower thing on you, like when you get in.
Yeah, just put me in a little bear suit.
I think Hereditary would probably be the scarier version of that.
I haven't seen Hereditary actually. So
Wrong Turn would be another good one.
Ooh, I actually haven't seen that.
Wrong Turn's pretty good.
Oh man,
Piranha 3D if they could pull off the water.
Sharknado.
13 Ghosts honestly is one of my top ones.
Yeah.
I can't think of another one that I'd want to see more than that. I don't know. Jaws Maze would be fucking...
House on Haunted Hill would be kind of interesting too. That'd be another like interesting one. But I think like honestly, I agree with you. Like 13 Ghosts would be absolutely... It would be epic. It would be epic.
I'm trying to think if they could do a Jaws Maze. Like if they had Jaws like shark puppets. Like if there was a way...
Shit, I mean, that'd be pretty scary. A big old giant shark coming out.
I think so too, because the Jaws ride... I've never been on it, but it looks terrifying.
Oh yeah.
So if there was a way to like simulate the water, I know they simulated water at Knott's in the depths when they had like that kind of like a laser grid that makes it look like water. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know if it would work out, but
yeah.
I don't know if they've ever done a classic Wolfman maze either.
As far as like a campy one, because like they do Ghostbusters and stuff,
Yeah.
I think they should do Gremlins.
Ooh, Gremlins would be good.
Yeah.
Gremlins would be great. Cat M 1832. I've never been to Halloween Horror Nights and really want to go, but I'm an absolute scaredy cat. Any tips?
This one's difficult because it is pretty intense. I would go with a group of people. Like this is obviously something you, and I'm not saying like the one other person. I think you should go with like multiple, like a huge friend group that people you feel comfortable around, and you could be in the middle of the group while you're walking through the haunted house. Because it
trust your group.
Yeah, because and then you need to start out slow, right? You could do maybe a haunted house that maybe you don't think is going to be too insane. Like you don't have to start off with the super gory one like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Maybe you can start out with something like Ghostbusters. Like Ghostbusters is not going to be this gory, out of control thing. Like it's going to be more or less about what's going on in the new film. So I think that's a good haunted house to start out with, to just give you an idea of what the scares are going to be like, what you're going to get used to.
Yeah.
And then you can work your way up to the more intense ones.
And Dylan, you'd probably know this better than me, but it seems like the scare actors, if they see that you're scared, they go for you.
Oh, game over. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't go easy on anybody.
I think even if you go for the first time and you are like scared, do your best to kind of, just keep.
Yeah. If you encounter me, you're screwed. Because I don't go you go easy on this person. Oh, absolutely not.
No,
like,
everyone's equal opportunity. I feel the same way.
Heck yeah. I remember when my first year working at our supervisor had told us in like a pre-shift meeting, she's like, I don't care who walks through this thing. You're going to scare every single person that walks through this haunted house because they're here for an experience. We're going to give them that experience and we're going to give them the thing that they paid for. And it makes us so, that's what makes Horror Nights so unique, is it is so terrifying. And people come for that kind of show element. So
don't rob them of that. Yeah.
No. And that's how I kind of view it. Like, I'm not going to obviously, like a lot of people say like, oh, don't scare the little kids. I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm going to scare the shit out of the little kids. If I'm not going to purposely go after them, but if they're in my path and like, I just so happen to, they so happen to be there, well then sorry about it, but they also have to get the experience as well.
I found even in my short experience of being a scare actor that the 10 to 13-year-old range kids that I would see were the ones that were the most mouthy.
Oh yeah.
And they were the ones that were like, that's not, and if I could scare them, oh boy.
If I had a nickel for every time that I heard a one-liner from those little kids, I'd be a billionaire.
On that note, too.
I'll also add,
oh, yeah.
like, as someone who was a big scaredy cat and was, up until my 20s, would refuse to go to any of these kind of events. I will say, if you could pick out things apart from like the jump scares and stuff that you can appreciate, like what like kind of got me more into it was when I was walking through the mazes, like, yeah, I'm scared as shit, but I'm like, oh, I really appreciate the work that went into this, like the artistic value. And when you start like noticing it in that light, or if you could pick out something that like, I mean, if you see, like, you seem like you're interested in going to these events, even if you consider yourself a scaredy cat. So there must be something about these events that interests you. So maybe hone in on that and just find an appreciation there. And then I think you'll notice over time that it's maybe not as bad as what it's chalked up to be.
Yeah, I that's also ironically how you end up getting the jump scares, is because you're looking at the details.
Yeah, they're beautiful pieces of art.
Let's finish with this last question here, and it's kind of related to what we're talking about right now. This comes from Adventures, I think, in Slothlandia. I can't read the end of the name; it's cut off for some reason. But if they're a scare actor, referring to Dylan, what's the best / funniest / craziest guest reaction they've ever had or heard of?
There's been so many over the years, and I'm not going to narrow it down to just one, but the best scares are when you scare groups of people. Yeah. And like, you'll get I always like going after like the dudes that are just like straight face, they're just in there,
That's
whatever.
The best.
Oh man. And like, there'd be a group of them and I will catch them off guard so badly and dropping to the floor, like, oh shit. Like, and that is the most rewarding thing. And like, it's those moments that I really love and remember. And there's been so many times where I've dropped people to the floor, like big groups of people. It's like they're just either coming into the park or they're coming into the haunted house for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's really cool. But there's just been, over the years, I've been doing this for so long. There's just so many good stories that it's just really hard to narrow it down to one.
Well, also too, the good thing about scaring like the type of person that's like, you could tell they're like, I don't get scared or anything.
Yeah.
Is not only the fact that you could scare them, but I also really appreciate it when then that person laughs after.
Yeah.
Because they could laugh. I like when someone, it's fun to get scared. It's fun to be like, oh, I could laugh at myself a little bit here.
Yeah, that's the whole point of going is you're there for entertainment, and this getting the shit scared out of you is part of the entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's like people should never go to those events with an attitude or anything like that. I mean, unfortunately, people do sometimes, but I always like to go after the people that may not, they're maybe nervous or they're maybe not having a good time because they waited a long time to park their car and now they spent all this money and stuff. I try to go after those people because it's like if I can give them at least an ounce of entertainment throughout the night, then I've done my job. And I feel like, then the value of that ticket gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And if they leave the event and go, you know what, that one guy, like they could have not gotten scared all night, but if they remember me, then that means everything.
Yeah, and hopefully they are going to the event, like you said, to get the thrill of being scared because it's fun. It's a fun thing to do.
I love it. I mean, I've loved it since I was a little kid. Like I've been involved in the haunted house industry since I was just a little guy. Like, so it's fun being around it. And when you work these events, which I encourage everyone to go and audition, not just for Universal, but for Knott's, Six Flags, all of them, you meet so many people and you get those connections and you build these friendships over the course of many years. And it's just so much fun.
That does it for our time here. We hopefully, sorry if we didn't get to your question. We try to get through as many as we could. But thank you again for joining us here, Dylan.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
And do you have anything that you'd like to plug at this point?
I mean, you can just check me out on Instagram at Theme Park Obsession and, of course, on YouTube, Theme Park Obsession.
And also, you can find him lurking in the shadows somewhere at Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, I won't say where I'm at this year. Everyone will find out in November. I'll reveal where I'm at, just like I did last year. But it's going to be a mystery, so you're just going to have to come to the event.
Every time I get scared this year at this year's event, I'm going to go, Dylan?
And you'll know it's me.
and for some of you who have already experienced this event so far this season, you wouldn't even have known.
Yeah,
he might have that big jump scare that you had. That was probably Dylan.
Yep.
You might have already gotten got. That does it for this episode of For Your Amusement. If you're watching, make sure to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Or if you're listening, please rate the podcast 5 stars and subscribe as well. You can support us by joining our fourth wall and becoming a park hopper, as we're calling it, or as Byron calls it, an FYA hole, by heading to fyaapod.com. And you'll also find our merch there as well, which actually you can see we got merch now. There's a little mug. Look at this.
The mug is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's got rides in the back. It's pretty fun. Follow the pod socials at FYAPod everywhere. I'm Ryan Bergara everywhere but Twitter, where I'm Ryan S. Bergara. And Byron is Byron A. Marin across all socials. Thank you guys for spending your time with us. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys all on the next ride. Bye-bye.